Okay, Chavra, good evening. My understanding is that we are on Daf Chav Vav Amud Aleph, correct, at the Mishnah?
Yeah.
I hope so. So we are in Maseches Berachos, Daf Chav Vav Amud Aleph at the Mishnah. We will begin. This Mishnah actually appeared previously in Masechet Daf Chav Aleph, but we'll do it again. Zav Shara Keri. So we're talking about different levels of Tum over here. So the halach is a Zav is one who needs to wait Zayin Nikiyim. Familiar with the halach of Zayin Nikiyim because when it comes to Tumas Nida, we're always machmir that any time a woman sees dam, we consider that to be a safek zava, and therefore every woman who sees dam nida, even tipas dam kechardo, the halach is she waits Zayin Nikiyim. Zayin Nikiyim means once the Tumas stops, it's still, a person has to wait 7 clean days. So here's the halacha with regard to a male who becomes Tamei Tumas Zav, he has to wait Zayin Nikiyim until he can go to the mikveh. But while he was Tamei with Tumas Zav, he also, Shara Keri, also became Tumas Keri. So Tumas Keri does not require Zayin Nikiyim, does not require waiting of 7 days, just has to wait till the evening and he can go to the mikveh. So here you have a person who has a double tumah. He starts with a very intense tumah of Tumas Zav. Don't worry, we're not spending too much time in tumah tonight. Just a short little tumah tire sugya. Just a little bit. Halach is, so he has a very intense tumah of Tumas Zav, and then he experiences Tumas Keri, so he has a little bit of a lighter element of tumah. Or Nida, so again, a Nida is a woman who menstruates, so not necessarily is every menstruation going to be Tumas Zava. It is only considered Tumas Zava if it falls within a certain period of time. We're not going to get into all that right now, but ultimately, so she's Tamei with Tumas Nida, but then Shapalta Shechvas Zera. So a Nida has to wait 7 days, not necessarily 7 clean days, but 7 days, and then she goes to the mikveh. Again, just to be clear, a Nida nowadays, we assume every Nida might be a suffix Zava, and therefore she has to wait 7 clean days as well, so therefore it takes much longer. But what happens is, she's Palta Shechvas Zera. So what happened was, she was intimate with her husband before she became a Nida, and then she became a Nida. It can take 3 days for a woman to secrete all the Shechvas Zera that she absorbed during tashmish, during the intimacy. The halacha is, if a woman is going to secrete shechvas zera, then it has the halacha of tumas keri. So a similar case, she's a nida, which is a very chamor, very strict type of tuma, and then she experiences a secretion of shechvas zera, peleta shechvas zera. The halacha is she is tamei like tumas keri, so she would technically have to go to the mikveh. The hamishameshes, a woman who's a mishamesh. So what's wrong with a mishameshes? Nothing. There's nothing wrong with being a mishameshes, except for the fact that after a woman is mishamesh, the reality is just going to be that she's going to secrete some shechvas zera. That being the case, she comes tamei with tumas keri. And then Sharas and Nida, and then what happened was after she had, again it's similar to Tumas Keri, she has this Paleta Shechvas Zera, and then she becomes a Nida. So in that case, the Nida state comes afterwards, says the Mishnah Tzrichin Tvila. All these cases need Tvila. What's the Chiddush? The Chiddush is that the Tvila doesn't really help, because if you're going to take a Zava and go to the mikveh as a Zava, just because the person happened to have also had Keri, he's still going to be Tamei, because he's Tamei with Tumas Zava. In other words, he can't just speed up the clock because the person went into the mikveh. He has to wait the required amount of time. The question just is, since Ezra made a takana, that someone who's Tamei with Tumas Keri can't learn, can't say Kriya Shema, should he go to the mikveh or not? So the Tanna Kama says, yes, go to the mikveh. It's like this. You could daven. You could say Kriya Shema. You won't be tahar. You're not going to be ritually pure, but ultimately go to the mikveh. It's like this. You could accomplish that. You're allowed to learn. You're allowed to daven. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Don't bother going to the mikveh. There's no reason to go to the mikveh when a person's tummy anyway. It's kind of like the classic example of Tovel B'Sharetz Biyado. He's tamei, he's going to the mikveh. It doesn't really help him to go to the mikveh. Therefore, basically, his idea is that the takana was not instituted in a case when a person can become tahar anyway. The Gemara asks a question. When analyzing this opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, Balkari Shara Ziva. So the other way around. A case where a person is only tamei with a lighter tumah called Tumas Keri, Shara Ziva, that then became tamei with Tumas Zav. So the question is, Rabbi Yehuda Mahu. What is going to be the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda? Should he still go to the mikveh now that the more intense tumah came upon him, or not? The Gemara explains, Ki Pat Rabbi Yehuda, When does Yehuda say that you don't go to the mikvah? Hasam. That's bezav shara keri mei kara. By a zav, he already has an intense. Bezav shara keri. He already has an intense tuma, and then he has a lighter tuma than the meikar lav bar tevilahu. He wasn't able to go to the mikveh. As soon as he became tamei with tumas keri, he was ineligible of going to the mikveh because he was tamei. So therefore, says Yehuda, what are you sending this guy to the mikveh for? What's the point? Aval Balkari, when we're talking about Balkari Shara, Ziva, Demei Kara Bar Tevila. He could have gone to the mikveh. Maybe he waited a little bit too long, but he didn't go to the mikveh. So then, maybe in that case, Mikar Bar Tevila, maybe in that case, Mechayiv, Odim Shna, maybe there's no difference. Gemara goes and tries to bring a raya. Tashema, let's try to prove this. Hameshameshes, a woman who is Meshamish, who's intimate with her husband, Varasa, Nida, and then after the intimacy, a decent amount of time later. We're not talking about a case where there's a suspicion that there's a connection between the intimacy and her seeing dam nida. So this is again a mishameshes, a tahora. A woman is ritually pure, and she's mishamesh with her husband kederach kol aretz, and then at a later point in time she becomes a nida. So what are we worried about? We're worried that number one, she's going to be palata shechva zera. She'll secrete shechva zera, and then she becomes a nida. She becomes time with tumas nida. What does the Mishnah say? Tzricha tvila. She has to go to the mikvah. Rabbi Yehuda Potter. Rabbi Yehuda says nah, and the Gemara explains clearly. Mishameshes v'rasa nida. Mishameshes is a lighter tumah. Again, mishameshes is not tamei, but it causes something similar to tumah when the shechva zera comes out. It's exactly parallel to a case of a balkari shura ziva, where it's a balkari who sees ziva, and still. So again, v'hamishameshes v'rasa nida kibal keri sharaziva damya v'kapat Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda still says she does not go to the mikveh. So clearly, we see it makes no difference which tumah comes first. We don't if there are two different tumahs over here, we're not going to send someone to the mikveh if the tevila in the mikveh is not going to accomplish a full taira. Shmamina. And the Gemara ends off, Tani Reb Chia behed. Reb Chia actually had a very clear brisa which stated this explicitly. Balkari shara ziva, Balkari that became a zav, tzricha tvila, needs to have tvila, Reb Yehuda poter. So clear, unequivocally, Reb Yehuda says, no, does not have to go to the mikvah because the tvila in the mikvah is not going to help. Hadron Allah Misha Mesa. With this, we conclude the third parak of Maseches Berachos. The fourth parak of Maseches Berachos, Tfilas HaShachar, is a very, very important parak. Practically, it covers a lot of very practical halachos with regard to Hilchas Tvila. As you'd expect, some of the Amudim over here are very exciting, very large, Berachos-style Gemaras, but it starts off with a very technical discussion, not a difficult discussion, but just a technical discussion about what time is the appropriate time for davening. So let's start. Tfilas HaShachar, which we call Shachris, Ad Chatzos. That period of Shachris starts from, doesn't say in the Mishnah, but it says the period extends until midday. Yehuda Omer, Yehuda says no, you don't get till midday, which is 6 hours into the day. Rather, ad dalit shows only until 4 hours into the day. What do these hours mean? This means that an hour in this case is not a 60-minute hour like you see in any clock. An hour in these days you'll calculate from the morning, the halachic morning, till the halachic evening, and I'm intentionally being a little ambiguous about what morning and evening means, just because of the various different opinions of how we calculate morning and evening. But you calculate the amount of time from morning until evening, and you'll divide that into 12 periods of time, and each one of those periods is going to be an hour. So you can imagine why in the summer, since there's more than 12 hours from morning to evening, a Shos Zmania is going to be longer. In other words, the hour is going to be calculated as much longer because from sunrise until sunset is going to be much longer than a short winter day when you have less than what we would call 12 hours, a normal 12 hours from sunrise till sunset, and therefore a halachic hour is going to be shorter than 60 minutes. So that's what we mean when we talk about these hours over here. So that's the two different opinions. Shachris either goes till midday, which we call chatzos, or it goes until 4 hours into the day. The Mishnah continues. Tfilas ha-mincha, the afternoon service. Mincha, ad ha'erev, until, again, very unclear, ad ha'erev, until the evening. What does evening mean? So, we're very accustomed to knowing that mincha The final time for mincha is shkia sachama. We don't have a mincha after shkia. However, you should just know that's not Rashi's opinion. If you look at Rashi right here, Ado Erev, Ad Chashecha, until it gets dark. Everybody knows that what we call shkia, it's not dark outside. It's going to start getting dark soon. But the sunset that we describe as sunset, it's not dark yet. Stay outside for 10, 15 more minutes. It'll start getting dark. But it seems like Rashi's of the opinion that mincha goes up until Tzeis HaKochavim. This is not the opinion of Rabbeinu Yonah, who says this is that the Erev means until Shkia. Maybe if we have some time, we'll be able to analyze this soon from a halachic perspective, although we're running out of time already. Yehuda Omer at Plag HaMincha. Yehuda says until Plag HaMincha. What's Plag HaMincha mean? It literally means half of Mincha. So let's just quickly make this calculation. If every day has 12 hours in it, those 12 hours are not necessarily 60-minute hours, but those 12 hours are the halachic hours of a day. Mincha is 9.5 hours into the day. In other words, that's what's going to be considered mincha gedola. If you take the remainder of that time, which is 9.5 till 12, how much is that? Right, 3.5 hours. Cut that in half. That's plag ha-mincha. Half of mincha. In other words, you cut that period of time in half, that's what's going to be plag ha-mincha. So it's going to be well before shkia, well before sunset. That's plag. And Mirz Hashem next week, once we change the clock, we reintroduce our plag mincha into our schedule. And we're going to see how that makes sense. People always ask, what's going on in suburban? The davening Marav in the middle of the day. It's middle of the day, people are davening Marav. We're going to see why, based off of this Mishnah, why indeed it actually makes perfect sense to be able to daven mincha before Plag HaMincha and Marav after Plag HaMincha, even though Oda Yom Gadol, it's still during the day. So again, that's those two different opinions. Mincha is Ado Erev, an ambiguous term, evening. Yehuda says, no, you only have until Plag HaMincha to be able to daven that mincha. Tfilas ha'erev, the evening prayer, Ma'ariv, ein lo keva. There's no set time for it. In other words, you could daven it all the way up until Shachar's time. V'shal musafim, the additional services of Musaf, Kol Hayom, it's relevant the whole day. Now, although it's relevant the whole day, there are going to be some restrictions just because of the other tefillos. Which one should you do first? Should you daven Shachris before Musaf? Well, clearly we know we daven Shachris before Musaf because we always do the tadir, the tefillah, which is set in stone, we do that first. So therefore, even though technically you could daven Musaf first, it's always appropriate to daven Shachris first. Similarly, if a person extends their Musaf later, it becomes a big question if a person's musaf extends till mincha time, should they daven mincha before musaf or not? We'll leave that. But ultimately it's relevant the whole day. The Gemara goes on and asks a stira. We'll try to do the Gemara till the end of the page, and if we have time, we'll come back to the halacha with regard to mincha and shachris. But if not, I'm here at Mr. Shem tomorrow night, so I'll have the liberty to be able to spend some time going to the halacha of when a person can and can't daven mincha. We know practically we always try to daven mincha before shkia. There are those who are very, very strict about never davening mincha after shkia. Usually those from the more of the Litvish backgrounds will be very careful not to daven mincha after shkia. And the Hasidim, they'll actually intentionally daven mincha after shkia. If they daven mincha as late as they want. And those who are a little bit more, again, I want to say lax because we're relying on Rishonim over here, but a person who's not really such a strong Litvak, not either such a strong Chassid, will try to daven mincha before Shkia, but if they miss it, they'll still daven mincha. We'll see how much longer after Shkia they'll still daven mincha. Gemara says, hold on a second. V'raminu, it seems like there is a stira, there is a contradiction. It seems to say, mitzvasa im hanetzachama, the time for davening Shachris, there's only one time for it. When is that? Hanetzachama. That means when the sun comes up. So no 9 o'clock minyan business. Shachris is Hanetzachama. And that's it. Why? Kadesh Yismoch Geula L'Tfila. This a person should be able to be Somech Geula to Tfila and V'nimtza Mispal B'yom, and he's davening during the day. So again, it seems like a person is supposed to be davening Shachris much earlier than Chatzos, certainly earlier than Chatzos, earlier than 4 hours into the day. Person should be davening Shachris at the first possible moment. The Gemara says, very nice. Ki tanya hahi livasikin. Those are the people who are very careful about mitzvos. So that's why we call it vasikin. Davening im hanit tzachama is called davening vasikin. That's the time of those who are very particular about, and very meticulous about their shmiras and mitzvos. They daven as soon as they can. But one is not required to. Damar of Yitzchak vasikin hayu gomer osa im hanit tzachama. The vasikin, those who were meticulous, would daven shachris. They would finish it with hanit tzachama when the sun came up. The kuli alma ad chatzos, they would do until chatzos. The Gemara says, "V'sulo, are you telling me that you can't daven anywhere after chatzos, after midday?" The Amar of Mari, Braid Rav Huna, Rav Mari, the son of Rav Huna said, Braid Rav Yirmiyah, the son of Yirmiyah bar Abba. So there's a lot over here. There is Rav Mari, Braid Rav Huna, Braid Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, who said it. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, name of Rabbi Yochanan. Ta, a person made a mistake. V'lo ispalel arvis, he did not have a ma'ariv. So he forgot. He made a mistake. Something came up. He fell asleep. He forgot to daven ma'ariv. Mispal shachris shtayim. He does 2 chakras. So he makes up chakras. This is called tashlumin. He davens chakras, and then after he finishes his Shemon Esrei, he repeats Shemon Esrei a second time. Chakras, a person forgot to daven chakras. Mispal mincha shtayim. He could daven mincha twice. So you see clearly that a person can daven chakras at mincha time. So why are you telling me that a person has only up until midday to daven chakras? Clearly it says a person forgot to daven chakras, you daven it by mincha time. So there's no limit, you can daven whenever you want. The Gemara says, hold on a second. Kula yoma matzli v'azal ad chatzos. Kula yoma, all day matzli v'azal. A person can always be davening. We're never stopping anybody from davening. Ad chatzos, if he happens to make his chakras on time, and he gets it done before chatzos, then yavi le'schar tefillah bizmana. He gets schar, he gets rewarded for davening chakras in the right time. There's a time and there's a place for everything. So yes, you get schar for davening at the right time. Mikan va'elech, a person davens chakras later, then schar tefillah yavi le, he gets schar for davening, because of course he davened. You can't discount the fact that he davened. However, schar tefillah bizmana lo yahavi le. He does not get schar for davening tefillah, for davening chakras on time. So we'll stop here for tonight. But that's the way the Gemara introduces this is that there's 2 opinions about when the latest chakras is. But although there are 2 opinions about when the latest chakras is, we still recognize there's the category of vasikin, which is davening as early as possible. There's 2 opinions as to when the latest mincha is. And then, on top of all that, we have that is called tefillah bizmana. However, there is still something which is rewardable, which is davening, even if it's not in the right time. And we'll talk about how to do that at Mitzvah tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening.